Hi, class. Arguably the best known and popular African American in American history remains Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., although he was assassinated some 52 years ago in April 1968. Dr. King was the outspoken minister, pastor, civil human rights activist who became the most visible spokesman for the movement in the 1950s, 1960s until his assassination. King is best known for advancing civil rights from nonviolence and civil disobedience. However, Gandhi, who inspired King's Christian beliefs and nonviolent activism, receives little recognition. King's life has been well documented, and many individuals who are anti-King like to focus on the scandal of plagiarism when King collected other people's thoughts and words during his PhD doctoral dissertation and called them his own. Searching the Jerry Falwell Library database, Project Muse, Humanities and Social Science, I read several articles about Dr. King and the civil rights pioneers. In the first article, researchers read through the papers of Dr. King while he was at Morehouse College and Crozer Theological Seminary, and they eliminate his moving struggle to find a religious faith grounded in science and reason from what he perceived the naive orthodoxy of the Black Baptists among whom he grew up. Yet he showed considerable uneasiness with the theological liberalism he was embracing, and he showed a tendency to veer back to the faith of his ancestors and neighbors. The author also asserts that despite plagiarism, King used their ideas to buttress a viewpoint he was formulating through a good deal of work and reflection. King's student papers and dissertation remain required reading for those who truly want to understand the person of Dr. King. And King not only stood on Gandhi's shoulders, but he also stood on the shoulders of Edgar Daniel Nixon, who worked as a Pullman porter and was one of the most influential African Americans in the Montgomery area. In fact, it was Nixon who Rosa Parks telephoned immediately after her arrest, and it was Nixon who pushed Dr. King to lead the Montgomery bus boycott. It was Nixon who helped establish the Montgomery Voter League and also petitioned First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt to establish a USO for African Americans. It's safe to say that Dr. King stood on the shoulders of giants. And also, speaking of Rosa Parks, in the popular legend, Rosa Parks is portrayed as a tired old seamstress in Montgomery who, on the spur of the moment, after a hard day of toil and work, decided to resist the city segregation laws by refusing to give up her seat on a city bus in 1955. Her one act of courage has earned her the title of Mother of the Civil Rights Movement. Parks had worked for the NAACP since 1943 in various positions. A most notable position was youth director and secretary. Little attention is given to her husband Raymond, a barber who helped raise money for the defense of the 9 Scottsboro boys. Also, in 1884, 71 years before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in 1955, railroad workers forcibly removed Ida B. Wells from a railroad car when she refused to give up her seat on the train that was reserved for white women. Also, Claudette Colvin, born 1939, was an activist and a pioneer in the civil rights movement in Alabama during the 1950s. She refused to give up her seat on the bus months before Rosa Parks' famous protest. The point of the discussion is this: there are many instances where trivial moments become life-changing events. Also, big people, notable people, stand on the shoulders of giants. My sources: Eugene Genovese, Martin Luther King Jr. Theology, Politics, Scholarships. Timothy B. Tyson, Martin Luther King and the Southern Dream of Freedom. Also, Peter Dreyer, Rosa Parks, Angry, Not Tired. Thank you for watching my video.